Hi guys, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery, and I'm located in Van.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Highland Heights, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hello, we're
Hello.
live.
Hello. We're live.
An hour and 15 minutes after we started talking.
I'm already tired.
That's the length of a podcast. I mean,
Yeah. I feel like I was tired coming into this conversation, though. I knew what was happening.
yeah, a lot of changes, a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just started back at work today, so it was like, oh, I'm gonna be dragging my feet. First time working the day job since mm, December 20th.
Damn.
So
How
almost
was
two
it?
weeks. Almost 2 weeks. Um, it didn't seem that long because we've been traveling so much because of going to Louisville for Christmas, and then we just went on a trip to Southern Illinois for a New Year's trip with Rachel and I.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only been really like 4 days at home or 5 days at home during that time. So it doesn't feel like enough. And we got to go to Evansville tomorrow. So
Oh, gosh.
yeah. Yeah, like delayed Christmas with my brother and the kids.
Yeah.
So
Oof.
travel, travel, travel. And then we'll go to Claycon West here soon. So no shortage of being on the road.
Yeah, for sure. Hmm.
You've been stationary for a bit. I mean, how long have you been at your parents'?
I'm so bored. Um, I I've been here since the 20th. So about the same time that you took off work. Is
Yeah, about
that
2 weeks.
right?
It's only been that long. Feels
No.
like it's been forever.
Maybe I came on the 16th. Yeah. I came on the 16th.
Okay.
Yeah. So I took my van in to get looked at a dealership on the 16th. So I was like
Mm-hmm.
already in town. So yeah, I am it's like I really don't like the cold now. That's that's what I'm deciding. Is that
Does
I
the
need to
sunshine
get
help?
yeah, the sunshine's fine. But the problem is that I can't like work in the van and it be comfortable like I would normally want to. So it so I brought like a 4 foot table into the to my parents' house and then I don't want to work there. It's
Well, do you
like
have a room? I mean, you're in a separate room now. Could you work in that room, or would you be intruding on your mom's space by doing that?
no, no, no. Where I'm working, nobody bothers me. It's just, I don't know what's going, I don't know what's wrong with my brain. It's like,
Hmm.
it's the pantry. I'm working in the pantry, which
The
is,
pantry that big?
yeah, it's a big old pantry.
Oh
It's,
my gosh.
let's see if I can give you a comparison. The pantry is, well, I'd say it's probably about 6 feet wide and about 20 feet long.
Holy shit.
But that's not all food. It's just, like, there's
That
shelves
sounds
on
like a
one.
storage closet.
There's shelves. Well, it's a dual purpose situation, okay? There's shelves on one side, and then my dad has like a separate kitchen um in the pantry. So it's like a stove and
Damn.
a sink, and then there's a door that leads out to the patio where his grill is. So they use it in the summer. They don't use it in the winter as much. So, and
Is
all
that a
of the
normal thing? You have a
no.
second kitchen? Like,
Well,
why is
I
that a
mean,
thing?
I
That's
don't
not
know.
like, I mean, that's on the same floor probably, right? Than the kitchen.
It's literally 5 feet away from the kitchen. Um,
What? That is odd. It sounds kind of like a pantry slash like I thought you were gonna say it's the laundry room. So it's like a
no,
multi-purpose,
no.
odd-shaped
Um,
room.
no. But like they took the cabinets that were from the house that I grew up in and like put them it's not like they spent a ton of money on this pantry thing. It's like they just took the cabinets from the other house and put it
Hmm.
into this house. It's not like it's not like a beautifully arranged situation. And it's where my dad keep like um my dad has one may consider a thrift store of kitchen supplies. So um that's where he keeps all of his crock pots,
Mm,
all
okay.
of his yeah. So it's like the pantry is my mom's sanity.
Mom's sanity.
Yeah, so my dad can keep all the stuff that he wants to keep in the pantry.
Oh, that sounds like a busy place to be trying to make stuff, though.
It's not the easiest, that's for sure, but it's fine. It's fine. I brought in a table and it fits perfectly, so it's like I'm just kind of working on the table. But I was so excited to get all the stuff done that I didn't continue working on stuff, you know? So,
Hmm. The change of
it's
scenery definitely impacts it because like, I always kind of think about this when I'm trying to like, quote unquote, like do work or do some computer stuff when I'm traveling. I can never like get myself to actually sit down and like find a spot to do it. Like, why am I
yeah.
so much more like able to do things at home when there's so many other quote unquote distractions or things that I could be doing? But like this is the space that my mind is like able to actually focus on the thing rather than
Well, it's
someplace
because
where I don't have the like there's nothing pushing me to get this done in this time frame.
but you also know where everything is and you know that everything's got a place and you know, I mean, even when you're working on a computer, you're sitting at your desk, you're surrounded by familiar things, and when you're somewhere else, you're not surrounded by familiar things. Like
Yeah.
people that work in coffee shops are like a freaking wonder to me. I cannot do that.
I'm too
I
distracted by that. I'm
yeah.
like, are they watching me? Like, are they wondering what I'm doing? Like, am I a burden to the people that are here because I didn't buy enough?
Yeah, like have I purchased enough things to make me here for 3 hours, okay? Like, yeah.
Yeah. What if I need to go to the bathroom? Do I need to pack up my stuff and like put it somewhere so nobody like wants to steal anything? Do I
Right.
just lock my computer? Like, uh, yeah, I don't know.
It's awkward. So, yeah. So you know, it's just like a different. I think that if I had just like kept my heater in the van, but also the van's on like kind of an angle right now. You have to park it close to the house to have heat because I have to put an extension cord out. So, and the driveway's a little bit angled, so it's a little bit harder to get in there. Plus, it's 10 degrees outside.
Are
Um,
you actively sleeping in there still?
No, actually, it's only 31 degrees outside, but like, you know, tonight it's going to be 23 degrees, 22 degrees. And
Yeah, that's pretty
like
damn cold.
when I had to take it in to get it fixed, I just moved into the bedroom and it's easier just to stay there. It's just
Yeah. And the cats are inside with you the whole time too.
pretty much Lloyd always, my dad wakes up at like, oh, dark 30. And so he usually lets him outside and then sometimes he comes back in. The van's open for the cats, like the little cat door.
Hmm.
And so sometimes he goes into the van, but I can't imagine it being like warm.
Yeah, who wants to just chill in a 30, even if it's 35 outside, 35-degree van?
My succulents froze. I
Mm,
I like didn't realize it. My succulents froze. So sad.
yeah,
So I need to get a diesel
damn.
heater and I'm working on it like Brian had talked about getting a diesel heater. I actually I actually like asked for a sample on TikTok shop, so we'll see if they
A
get
sample.
like a free sample.
Mm.
Um I doubt it will come to being, but it's fine. Uh, but yeah, yeah. It's just yep. I don't know.
But would you be the next place you go, are you physically going to be able to sleep in it? Or is it still going to be a cold climate where you're like, not until I get somewhere reasonable am I
Well,
going to be comfortable?
Utah right now. Let's see.
It's probably like
Westville for sure
50,
would
50s or
Westville is
something.
colder than it is here. I'm glad I'm not there. Utah is like 54 degrees during the day, which is a very comfortable degree for me during the day.
Yeah. Plus it's sunny.
And 36 degrees at night, which is fine with me.
Yeah. It's kind of on the
Um,
edge, I would suspect, but
yeah, and I mean like I remember last year during ClayCon West it got down to like 20 degrees and it was cold. But um I think it'll be fine, you know? And I need to get a diesel heater. If I don't get approved for this diesel heater from the TikTok thing, I'm just gonna buy one.
yeah.
And
I mean,
I
it'll be
think,
worth it.
yeah, and I think that maybe either Chase or Joe will be able to help me if I need help, which I probably won't. But yeah. So yeah, it'll be worth it for sure. So anyway, yeah. I forgot to tell you. You don't even know this. My mom got all of her friends from her Bible study, and they're all coming over for a workshop tomorrow.
Mm. You mentioned you were doing it, but I didn't know the status of it.
There's going to be 9 people at 1 a.m. and 6 people at 6 p.m.
You mean 1 p.m. and 6 p.m.? I think you said 1 a.m.
1 p.m. Yeah, 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. So 15 people over that time, and you'll have. Is your mom going to participate?
hmm Yeah, I don't think she counted herself, and my sister's going to come too. So, um, yeah,
Is it
but
all repeats of the jewelry workshops, or are you doing some different?
yeah, we'll do repeats of the jewelry. So yeah, that's pretty fun. Um, yeah,
Sweet.
that's going to be really fun. And got to take Lloyd to the vet tomorrow because he got in another fight, so that's great.
Jeez. That
Listen,
cat's. How many lives that cat got? I mean, I guess fights are not full on lives, but you know.
no, it was like the tiniest scratch. It's like maybe a half an inch and it's already infected and he's got a big welt on his head.
Damn. That
Yeah, because
cat.
he's immunocompromised.
That damn
He could
cat.
literally you could give him a sliver and I'd have to take him to the vet. It's so dumb.
He just needs a bubble. You need a bubble for him so he can like live in a bubble.
Yeah, it's so dumb. And I mean like I really don't even know if he got in a fight. Like he could have gotten pecked by a chicken. Like it's
I mean, I would just like I don't know if he's like humans, but like when it gets really cold, your skin gets dry. Like is his skin just drier and he's just more susceptible to scratches and stuff because it's cold?
no, 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 he's just immunocompromised.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully that I know that those vet bills have been adding up, but hopefully it's not too bad. Just to get him checked out.
No, it won't be.
Checked out.
It probably will be like 120 or something like that. It'll be fine. I might be in I I might have to pull out some stocks this month, but hopefully by the end of it I'll have a steady income, so we'll be good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
working toward it.
working toward it. Um, have you been doing any work or anything like that?
Yeah, I've mostly been doing I'm trying to think computer work, trying to clean up the studio. Definitely been cleaning a lot, tidying
Yeah.
things up, reorganizing in the back. I think I mentioned that. Rachel and I did quite a bit of that. There's still some. Oh, you can't see. Oh, you can see it. These are all the boxes of stuff that I'm gonna get rid of. It's basically just a
Fantastic.
bunch of tools, and there's a shelf in the back that's fairly empty. So
Love that.
a lot of tidying up. We're gonna give a bunch of older speedball underglazes that we haven't used as much, and there's some of the like, older bottles and things. So we're gonna give those to artist here locally that Erica knows that does some underglaze work. So
Cool.
gonna pay it forward a little bit, give it to somebody that'll use it, and I did build a mug. So we went on our trip. I built a custom mug shelf for somebody
hmm
that messaged me and was like, "I would love like a mug shelf like that. Is there any way you ship them or like like I'm in St. Louis. Are you willing to
Oh, and you're
um
like, we're coming
send
right
them?"
through.
And I'm like, not going to be that far away actually. They're 2 hours away from that." from where we were at, and I made it within a week. And she paid me right up front and got it done, and wham bam, all done. So
Bam, bam,
that
thank you,
was
ma'am.
yeah, that was pretty easy to get
Did you
done.
have to go through St. Louis to get to where you were going?
No, we didn't go as far as St. Louis.
Oh, did she meet
We
you?
Yeah, so her she actually ended up getting sick, so her father drove to where we were, which is
Okay.
we were 2 hours south of St. Louis. So we weren't really that far from Evansville, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So we were
Yeah.
just about an hour and a half from Evansville, which is where my brother lives. So we're pretty much going back the exact same way tomorrow. Um, but yeah, it was pretty easy. I mean, I got the hardware and the wood and everything, and it was pretty straightforward. So I'm always open
Nice.
to making those shelves for people if they're close enough by and I don't have to ship them. I don't even want to think about shipping a. This one was a little smaller. It was only 3 columns wide,
Yeah.
so it was 40 by 20. It wasn't
Yeah.
that big, but I still wouldn't want to ship one of those. I don't even like even if somebody willing to pay for shipping, like I don't want to be responsible if something gets dented or whatever. No,
No.
thank you. Shipping
Um,
pottery is enough. I don't want to ship some big things.
no. I have some news actually.
Yeah, what's
A
that?
little a little fun news, like little fun small news. So, the okay, so I sold that one pastel drawing that I did to my friend Joy, and she offered $50 for it, like the
One
little
of
four
the
by
six
five.
by six, 4x4. Nice.
Mm-hmm. And then my mom's like best friend, Patty, she is part of the Bible study and they came over for New Year's Eve and I was like, and she wanted one and she offered 40 at first. And then her husband is like the perfect art husband, if that makes any sense. He loves to spend money,
Hmm.
like loves it. And they've got it, so and so Patty was going to buy one of the paintings, right? And he looks at all of them and I was like, you can't have this one. This one's sold. I just wanted to show it to you. And he's like, okay, well, we can't have three. We need four.
Hmm.
And I was
How
like,
many did you already do?
I had four total. So
And
one of them
one
was
was
sold
for Joy, right?
and one's for Joy. And so he's like, well, we can't have three. We have to have four. So
Mm.
you're going to have to make us another one. And I was like, okay. And he's like, and how much are we paying you? And I was like, you can name your price. I don't care how much you want to pay for it. And he's like, well, how much did the other person? And my mom was like, tell him how much the other person paid for it. And I was like, $50. And he's like, okay. And
So 200 bucks.
he pulls like $200 of cash out of his wallet. And he's like, but we want a fourth one. And it comes with the frame, right?
Yeah. Do you
He's,
have, I guess most frames don't have, well, I guess it like family frames, right? They have the like collages.
yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, and I just got these really cute 4-inch frames that are just wood and they look really nice with them. And Patty actually helped me pick out the frames. Um but yeah, so I have to make them a
Nice.
fourth one that's that goes with the theme. Like they're all different colors. So I have to make one that's
Hmm.
like muted colors, but different colors than the other muted color one. So
Yeah, because all of them are pretty varied. So
yeah.
you were,
So
because one of them was like challenging yourself to use colors you don't like, right? Or is that something
yeah.
different?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do another one that's kind of like that, but probably brighter but still muted. Like maybe more
Okay.
blues and purples, but still muted. So, yeah, but
Nice.
that was fun. He always does this to me and I love it. It's not that I like it's not that I like am greedy because I'm like, oh, I know that Patty's gonna buy my stuff. It's that the experience of them buying the stuff is so fun and so unexpected. Like, you
Yeah.
know, like Patty will be like, "Well, what do you have? What kind of stuff do you have right now?" And I'll pull it out and she'll start looking and then her husband will just start pulling things out and be like, "Well, we can't have
Yeah.
that one without this one." And it's just
Yeah.
like, "Dave." Like
Love that.
and I know he's like the perfect customer, and he just makes you like your heart fill up. And then he was like, you have to put these out so that you can sell them on Friday. But if you sell them, you have to sell them for 65. I was like, okay, and make you another one. No, I'm not doing that.
They'll be like, I'll pay 65, but this one's already sold. And then they'll be like, you need to make me one before you leave.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Does it feel different with that kind of experience versus your pottery that people like if it's the line cups or something that you're like you put a lot of work into and people are willingly
I
like
think
don't
so.
even care how much the price is. They're just like, I
I
want
think
that
so.
one and that one. Ooh, but like we need a pair of them, you know?
Yeah. I think so. It makes it feel like you're good, you know? Like, I don't know, when you're selling like basic bitch cups like we do, yeah, you feel like you're good and you feel like people love your stuff, but when you like actually when you're like doing something very specific for a very specific purpose and there's only one of them, it feels a little bit more special, you know?
Hmm.
Even the line cup, even like the fancy cups, those weren't the same as this,
Really?
you know?
You didn't get that
Mm-mm.
boost because I feel like those are canvases and you're painting very
They are
one-on-one on them.
canvases, but after a while you get so repetitive with how you do it. Like the way I would do it would be like I'd pair them in twos anyway so that they were similar.
Mm,
And, you know,
okay.
it was more it's more work. It's more organizational work instead of like, meh, I'll just paint this with these colors, you know? So
Yeah.
it's more
Well,
like
that
what saves me the most time when I'm painting 16 of these fancy cups, you know?
right. You're not going out of your way to do things that are inconvenient
Yeah.
and inefficient just because you're like, I really want this look, even though I'm
Yeah.
not using these colors on anything else.
Yeah. And I wouldn't like test myself on a fancy cup. I wouldn't do that, like make a brown one, you know?
Right.
Like my least favorite color is brown unless they're people.
I mean,
Like,
you've tested some of it with clay bodies, haven't you? Didn't you make some fancy cups with different clay bodies and you were like, I don't know what these colors are going to look like on these clay bodies?
yeah, but usually they're still pretty bright.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like a really fun.
Yeah, I like
Here's
those interactions
$200.
where you don't expect it. I definitely feel that with some of those like some soda pieces, but also some of the like textured carved mugs that are like 75 bucks. And I'm like when they don't even like bat an eye when they look. They're like,
Hmm.
I want that one. And I'm like, okay, that's 75 bucks. And they're like, great.
Okay.
I'm like,
I feel
sweet.
like I feel like your mom is that customer.
Yeah.
Like I do think that she's more frugal than most of these people, but I do feel like your mom, like when she buys something, especially in person, but sometimes even online, it's like a special interaction
Oh
because
yeah, she's definitely
she's
chatting
so
with everybody
personable and
and
like, yeah,
very
yeah,
very wants to know about your process and
yeah.
learn more about you and really build that connection.
Yeah, like when we went to when we went to that like show that Taylor was at, there was like
Mm.
7 vendors and she bought something from every single person.
Oh really? I think I
Yeah.
saw some of it at the house, but I didn't realize
Yeah.
you got that
I
many
mean,
different things.
I think I bought something from every single person, but those tiny shows you kind of like you walk in and you're like, okay, I'm ready to drop some dough because I'm gonna feel terrible if I don't.
Yeah. I mean, you know it's a big risk for them because they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, maybe not a huge risk, but it feels like they're probably not getting a ton of
People.
foot
Yeah.
traffic at a show that's like seven people, seven
Yeah.
vendors.
Yeah. Yeah. But those are also some of my favorite ones too, because then you really get to talk to people.
Yeah, you're not rushed to be like, okay, like let me get out of your way so you can sell to more people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, Maker of the moment.
maker of the moment.
Look at us remembering.
Do we have a little jingle for that or not yet? I was thinking like this magic moment, but I was like, no, that doesn't really get me.
This maker of the moment.
Your lips are close to mine, will last forever. All right, I got mine handy. Mine is Hayden Swanson from Living the Dream Pottery.
Oh, you chose Hayden. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how many followers he had, but he's at 3,700 or so. Yeah,
Is
I just love his vibe and his drive and like his personality. He's just like all in it and he's just like a go-getter,
he is all in. He's
cranking out
like
work all the time. Like I don't get how he keeps up with the production, but
he is such
it's
a
wild.
cutie too. He's like you can tell that he is just like you can tell that he's one of those kids that you would have had to been like, "You know what? Maybe you should settle down." You know? Maybe you should chill the fuck out. But he's like got unlimited energy.
Yeah, he's got this he's definitely got that drive and that seems really determined and just
And
keeps pushing and I'm like, "Man, he's making all these mugs, like he's making like a 200 order mug or like a 400 more, yeah, I don't know,
yeah,
cranking stuff out and I'm like, "Man, I don't see how you keep up with this production, but he's making it work."
he's the type of person that before you know it, he's gonna get so good because he's just cranking out mugs. Like he's not thinking about what's the best. He's thinking
Yeah.
about how many he can make. And those are the type of people you gotta watch out for because they'll like at one moment they'll hit it, they'll like hit their niche and it's like set sales from there. You know? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
those
he's
like he was cranking out those Chris Crendel mugs and I think he was doing something with throwing them and badging them and handling them like all in the same day or something. And he was like
yeah.
he was doing something and just letting them dry. And I'm like, man, you could do that? Like they just dry fine. And he's like, yeah, we did it
Well,
with a
he's in
handful and it worked. And he's in Minnesota. Yeah.
yeah, he's in Minnesota. There's a little bit more moisture up there, so yeah.
So he was
Yeah,
like, yeah, it worked. They didn't break off and it turned out fine. So like, yeah,
yeah.
he's got it down.
But he also like you can see like down a couple, I don't know, like 10 pictures on a computer. I'm on a computer, but he's got one where he's got like 100 broken pots, and I'm like, that is the type of life that you have to have when you're doing shit like this because something's gonna go wrong and everything's gonna break and you're just gonna have to figure it out again,
Hmm.
you know? And like keep your head
Yeah.
up and just keep going. And I really
Yeah, I
like
think
him.
that one he accidentally glaze fired a bisque load
Yeah.
to cone five
Yeah.
or something,
I
and it
believe so.
went too high, and he was like, "Yeah, not worth saving. Keep it moving."
Yep. And yeah, he's got the work ethic
That's
that
living the dream, no G in there. Living the
yep.
dream pottery.
Yeah, he's great. Okay. Mine is I'm gonna search it before I say it because I dot e no I'm not dot ceramics. Ishara Sweeney.
Mhm. Ishara, yeah, one of those.
Ishara Sweeney. She's doing, or they are doing, or whoever um, they're doing uh these like beautiful illustrations, and it's like a backwash, usually like a gradient, but then uh, like animals and sgraffito on top, and it's just really cool and they're funny too. Like she has one that has a bird that says fuck this shit and or fuck this shite.
Hmm.
And like one that says that's right bitches and it's like a cat. um and they're just really cool. I just like them and they're just weird and they're colorful and sassy and she's so talented. Like the things that she's putting on the cups are really talented.
Yeah, the
And
drawing, the detail, all the. I'm guessing it's probably a maybe it's a combination of
I like her handle too.
underglazes
Underglaze.
and glazes.
I want to say
I
it's
think
mostly underglazes,
underglaze, yeah.
but yeah, like it's just you can see that she's like finding her. She like found her groove a while ago, but she's kind of just like really getting into it. There's like there's like a point where she basically you could see that she's like, "Oh, we're putting cuss words on here now."
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and which is your, like your prerogative, right? When you want to do that, but I do feel like there's always this like journey to get there because you have to feel comfortable enough to do it because um it really like what's the word I'm looking for? Separates you, from a certain demographic. So,
Mm-hmm. And it
yeah.
looks like the backgrounds got better too. There's
Yeah.
some like a
Yeah.
little bit more um flat background with the graphic on it, and it looks
Yeah.
like there's been an evolution of getting them to play nicer together, and like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like a design stuck on top of a good like color or glaze. It's actually like
Yeah.
paired well.
Yeah, I just really like it. It's just like very illustrative. And she's got 4,154 followers. So, she does say no commissions at this point, but I think that she does do drops. I'm not positive, but it sounds like she does. And yeah, they're just really cool. And like she's got some purple mugs, and I don't know what purple she's using, but they are purple.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's
very
really cool.
purple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that's maybe. Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see any hashtags on there for, like maybe it's royal purple or some
Yeah,
of
I don't know if
those.
it's an Amico purple. Like I've never seen a purple like that from Amico, but I don't. Yeah. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I
yeah,
like the little additions of the gold too.
me too. Yeah, I feel like that's a really good. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of gold luster typically, but that she does ones with dragons and snails and frogs, and the addition is really subtle. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so go follow, like, and love these people. Um, mine is I.E.ceramics, and yours was
Living the Dream Pottery.
Living the
No
Dream
G,
Pottery.
no G in there.
Yep. Cool. Fun.
Did you put them on the Instagram account?
No, but I will when you read
First
the
question.
first question.
All right, the first question comes from Goose and Swan Pottery. It reads, "Why do people only want to buy mugs?" Question mark, exclamation point.
I often ask this question myself. What do
think
you
folks just
think?
want I think folks just want something that they're actually going to use. Like most of us, well, yeah, a lot of us, I mean, pick up a mug every day and you drink your morning drink out of it, so it's like the first thing you interact with that's, you know, part of your daily ritual. So I think they want to sweeten that experience a little bit, and that's the easiest like entryway into supporting handmade is to buy something that's functional that they're actually going to use. So
Yeah, but like, where does it stem from? It's like y- you all.
I think it's also personalized. Like it's the perfect combination of you got aesthetic, you've got function, you've got like comfortability, you've got some personalization. Like I mean, you always hear that comment of like, I gotta find the perfect one. Like it's gotta fit perfect, or like the handle's gotta feel just right. Like it is a very personal purchase.
It
Like if it's
is.
just a bowl, you don't care that much. Like the having a handle feels like it's more meant for that person, whereas other forms like a cup, does it fit your hand? Like sure, I guess. but like
Right.
it feels less personal because it doesn't have to fit your individual hand as well as like a handle would, or be as comfortable.
Yeah, I think that also it has something to do with coffee. Um, I think that that's big. I mean, like tea is one thing, but a lot of people like tea cups for tea. Like
Hmm.
a china teacup, as opposed to should I say Ryan's maker of the moment or should I say just maker of the moment? Because I have just been saying maker of the moment.
I say just say maker of the moment.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, I think that that has something to do with it. It's like, when did coffee become really popular in our country specifically? Probably in the 80s when Starbucks started to become popular. Like
Yeah,
90s, it
maybe.
started booming. I would say 2000s is when like, it was definitely like Starbucks opened in 1972, I think, or 5 or something like that. And that was in Seattle. And, Starbucks first store.
Coffee was brought in the Americas in the mid 1600s. First coffee house in the US was established in Boston in 1676.
Okay, but that wasn't, but yes, I agree, but it wasn't potentially like super duper popular. In 1971 is when Seattle had Starbucks, right? And like I think it only grew from there.
When did coffee become popular in America? Mhm. Boston Tea Party, 1773. Industrial innovations, instant coffee, 20th century. By the 19th century, coffee had cemented its place as a staple beverage in American culture. I mean, I think it's more historic than we think, but that's probably just because there's less documentation back then.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
true.
I'm sure Starbucks definitely like ramped it up. But I mean, like water wasn't as popular. Like like
Mhm.
I'm just thinking back to like Back to the Future 3 where they're going around and they're like going in the bar, like a glass of water. Water? Go out
Water.
in the horse trough if you want some water. And here we serve whiskey.
Whiskey. Yeah.
And it's like, like drinking and like having coffee is probably like a standard. Like they don't drink a lot of variations back in the 1800s.
Well, yeah, that's because you got sick if you did. Beer's a
So,
lot safer than water is.
yeah.
I don't know. I think that like yeah, I think you're right about like it being personalized and stuff like that. I don't It's not my favorite thing. I would say that I would much rather collect a bowl than I would. But that's maybe because I like to eat a lot more than I like to drink coffee.
I mean, we haven't even talked about price too. Is price the right, like they can conceptualize the value of a mug because they know how much use they're getting out of it and
Maybe.
the they kind of know the standard of what they're willing to pay for a mug versus a cup because they're like, where am I going to use that? Am I going to use that for my bathroom cup? Am I going to use that for a water cup? Like how,
Right.
like if you know you're going to have a coffee every day and use it every day, the price per use goes like, you know, you're paying a nickel each time you use it and you're
Yeah.
going to get your value out of it in, I don't know, but a couple months if you use it that frequently,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how much it costs for it. Like I feel like it's also that's a sweet spot too. Um, but yeah, I think that's just a standard. That's probably the like what's the most introductory item that people would buy in ceramics? Like mug is the standard, right?
A mug.
Like people are
Yeah.
not buying a shot glass first.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like I think also an answer to this question that's not an answer to this question is Nobody actually knows, but if you don't make them, good luck. Like, you have to make something really cool if you don't make mugs.
It's kind of the barometer for a lot of um well, at least if you're wheel throwing,
Yeah,
like it's a nice combination of is it balanced? Is it proportional with the handle and the body? Like is the
yeah,
size like relative to the handle and the weight of it? So it's yeah, it's just a good cross section of skill level. And it's also like one of the first things that we learn to make when we're taking a class, right? You learn to make a
yeah.
cylinder and then you make a mug or you make a
You make
bowl.
a mug. Boom.
Like like you're not starting with shot glasses.
No, for sure. Yep.
All right. Thank you for that question, Goose and Swan Pottery. I
Yes,
don't know if they currently make mugs, but good luck. All right.
indeed.
What's new with your kiln?
Well, okay. Well, here, actually, this is a twofold little advertisement. I will be doing a workshop actually coming
Mm.
up with Sephora on February 20th. Ryan's fact checking. And
February
it's,
12th.
God, I had the two.
February
But
12th at 1 p.m. Eastern time.
February 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And this has been in the works for a year almost because I think it's one of those things that is kind of taboo to do an online situation with, but we're doing a kiln workshop. So I'm going to be going over how to change your elements, how to change your thermocouple, how to change your relay, and kind of like point out what certain things are in the kilns. I'll probably go over how to set a program, how to I haven't even done the list yet. But
Mm,
um I it happens to be perfect timing because my plug-in fire needs new elements. And I am very excited to do it with the plug-in fire because first of all, I haven't ever changed the elements on that specific kiln before. And also I could not have had an easier kiln to change the elements in. So
yeah.
I, from somebody
But
that literally just changed somebody else's elements, uh, Liz, Liz Cohen, she was like, I don't want to change my elements, so can you come and do it for me? Um,
ooh.
so I just did that, and let me tell you that, and it was not an L&L kiln, it was El Señor Red, and and it didn't suck as much as it used to suck, but it still sucked.
Yeah.
But um lots of pins. Lots of pins. And also I'm excited to do it on a small kiln because as a vertically challenged human being, um getting into a 7 cubic foot kiln for me or a 10 cubic foot kiln for
Yeah.
me, it sucks. It like absolutely sucks. And my stomach hurt that day too, so it just was like extra worse.
Yeah.
And
Did you have to get on a stool to get down there, regardless?
yeah, yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
100%. And so I'm excited to do it in the plug and fire because literally, even if I wanted to, I could just lift it up and put it on a table and
Yeah.
like do it on the table if I wanted to. And so excited for that. Uh and the element channels, all I have to do is just like scoot them right in there. I don't have to put any pins in. Very exciting. I don't
Yeah.
have to crimp any wires. I do understand that there's like amongst some of the people that I know, there's definitely um a debate on what's the best method of like attaching the elements. And I actually do prefer the L&L way because all you got to do is wrap it around the thing and screw
The
it on tight.
screw and yeah.
But
There's a
I
lot of
understand
connection
that.
that way. Otherwise, you're just connecting like you're
Yeah,
hoping that 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 crimped area is great on both sides, and
Yeah.
that's all you got, you know. If it's not crimped enough, there's not a connection made. So at least
Yeah,
with
and
the
I
wrapping
mean,
it around, you know, you got a couple points of contact.
exactly. And I talked to Dimitri about that and like why they have the washers the way that they do. And he was like, it's just really for more connection. That's it. Like they're really aware of how much connection you need and like how something can go wrong. Like for instance, I had um another kiln. It was blue. And I love that kiln. Don't get me wrong, loved it. But I like didn't get one of the connections like perfect and it ended up frying the whole board. Um
Really? Wow.
like Sarah had to change out all the elements and when I sold it to her, which I felt bad about. But so, but I had no idea. I had no idea and I've like changed out a bajillion kiln elements. Like this is not something that I'm shy about, you know? And so knowing that it's secure, that it's attached and that it's like good to go is a really it's very nice. Also, L&L like when you change out the relays for L&L, they're in the top and not on the old ones. But the new ones, they're on the top, and all you have to do is like bend it down. Like the top part comes down. And on
Like
all
where the
the other
touch screen
ones,
is.
yeah, it's like near the touchscreen, I believe. And on all the other ones, it's like way at the bottom, and they're so hard to get to, and you have to like lay on your side to like undo them all. It's a it's a hot mess. So um, yeah, and it'll be fun to kind of like experience the inside workings of the plug-in fire. I've already opened it up once. Um, it's there, so they're in there. You know, the
Yeah, it's a
box,
small surface area or small footprint there for
yeah,
the
the box
workings.
surrounding all of the stuff is definitely secure. So, um, but yeah, I'm excited about it and I'm excited for the workshop because there's not enough information out there with all of the information that you need to know about changing out your own elements, your own relays, your own thermocouples, like looking for, you know, certain things that are wrong and stuff like that. So,
I would suspect it also eases some of the worry because folks pay this much money for these pieces of equipment that are not cheap, and they want to make sure that they're doing things right and they're being safe about it.
yeah,
But if they do worry about it, they could always go to the website and look at their how-tos. They could
exactly.
learn about it piece by piece. Like I actually can watch you do it for 30 minutes and not stress about, well, she didn't show me that part. Like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I hope to do L&L proud,
yeah.
obviously. Uh, this would be one of those ones that I kind of wish wasn't live so I could like record it beforehand and like,
Hmm.
you know, but
But you've changed elements on a different L&L before, right?
I've changed elements on every single
Like an
kiln.
older one, yeah.
I've changed them on all the things, every kiln.
Yeah.
It's
So why are you worried about the pre-recorded then?
well, I don't know, it's just like a big responsibility. But I don't want to say something wrong and then somebody does something on their kiln and they screw their kilns up, you know?
Yeah.
I
I
don't think
just
I'm going to
like
say
preface
something
it
wrong,
with
but
I am not a kiln tech, but this is what I understand about working on kilns for the last X number of years.
well,
And
I
double
don't know.
check everything I'm
I don't
doing
even
with the
know.
videos.
I don't even know if I can say that I'm not a kiln tech because I've done kiln tech work for a lot of different people.
That's true.
It's just a fake it till you make it situation.
Well, I mean,
And oh,
it would probably be best for you to be doing it on an L&L than any other kiln, I suspect, from the knowledge that you have about
yeah.
the kiln.
And you know what I actually will probably do is I will probably read all of the information that they have on their website just to like triple check to make sure that I'm not saying something that might be skewed or thought like to be different. And then I'll do like that'll be the prep for this workshop essentially is
Yeah.
to read the um
how
all the
to's or
manual stuff
video. They got
in the
good
videos
videos
that they
too.
have. Yeah. So I'm actually extremely happy, genuinely happy that they have that because I'm doing this so that I can
Yeah.
just triple check everything. So yeah, where can you find all that stuff, Ryan?
iTunes.com.
Hotels.com.
And the link to the workshop's going to be in the episode description. So if you were looking for that, you can go to Sephora's website and sign up
Yeah,
there.
$40 and you can rewatch it. So that's
Yeah,
perfect.
there you go.
That's a screaming deal. So,
Yeah.
man, oof.
Alrighty. Do you want to read the topic question for the day?
Yes, yes, let me find it. Okay. We should preface this with we're going to do our best, but we're not, it's already, we're not accountants. Okay. Um, Alrighty. It says, I've recently started a home studio. I'd love to know how you maintain a budget and file those taxes. How do you keep track? Pile the receipts, Excel sheet, what counts as a write-off? I realize this might be a question for a CPA, but any insight would be helpful. And that's from
Palermo,
Pa- Palermo.
maybe.
Palermo Ceramics. Palermo. I think he's right. Palermo Ceramics. Yeah. So we're gonna try to do our best without giving you like concrete financial advice. Just kind of like
Probably just get you in a direction. I mean, you're just getting
yeah.
started. So I mean, I think keeping track is definitely something good to be
Yeah.
asking about. Um,
And this is like prime time because everybody's worried about that. It's the beginning of the year. It's a
yeah.
great time to like get all of your stuff in order. So,
Yeah, I mean, first off, I would say keep track of it as soon as possible. Like, even if you're pen and paper in it, we've talked
yeah.
about this a number of times, keeping us, setting up a separate bank account for it. It doesn't have to be a business bank account. It could be a consumer checking account or whatever. Just have that separation so that you can actually keep up and do your accounting easily. Go ahead.
Um, we're gonna give you a chance right now. If you're if you can go to Chase or Relay and get a fucking bank account right now. Pause this episode. Do it now because this is not a suggestion. This is a requirement.
Yeah,
Okay?
I don't know how people go about splitting that. Even if you are keeping track, you're like, oh, well, I do good about like keeping track but I want to use my credit card to get the points and all that. Like,
That's fine. Use a credit card.
just
Just
only use that credit card for that stuff.
yeah, you guys, I literally set up a new bank account in Chase last week in 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes. It took no time at all. And I already have a Chase credit card that was from an old business account, but I needed to my it was a weird thing where I needed to deposit checks. And so I set up a Chase business account. It took well, just a Chase credit like debit account. It took no time. And guess what? Now I have a separate bank account for my business and now I incidentally have three. Um,
Yeah,
so that's fun.
separation's key. So, as we're talking about how to keep track of receipts and Excels and profit loss or whatever, you need that separation or else you're not gonna you think you're gonna remember and you're like, oh, it'll be fine. Like I don't spend that much money. I don't go to you know, I don't go here and buy stuff that frequently. But you probably also, you might buy some supplies from Amazon. Do you, how do you keep track of all those Amazon purchases? Do you use a different card? Do you have it on the same card? Do you batch it with other orders and you've got to like separate out, oh, those things were for the business, but those were for my personal stuff? Like, how do you keep track of that? So, separation, separate card, separate account. Whenever I'm making purchases on Amazon or my Clay store or whatever, always use that card. So you can look at the statements and keep track of transactions. And then I started off super basic Excel sheet. Every time I made a transaction, I would keep the receipt. So I was doing like paper receipts, and I would typically sit it in one spot that I always knew that I needed to like account for it. And I think I did it like once a month maybe because I wasn't doing that much transactions at that point, but I might have did it, picked a certain day and set a calendar reminder and said like, log expenses or something. And each of those receipts I would just go through and manually put them on an Excel sheet, put the date of when I purchased it, put the price of what I spent, where I was at, if I went to Lowe's or whatever, and then put the reason of, what did you spend it on? What was it for? And I did keep
Now,
the physical receipts for a period of time, but I
I
do
don't do
something
that
different.
anymore.
I do something different now, but I keep them digitally now. I use an app to photograph them, and it makes them into PDFs,
Yeah.
and I can use folders and all that. So that's what I do now. But back in the day, I used to keep physical paper copies.
Yeah. And I mean, like, honestly, I don't even know if I keep physical paper copies or if I even take a picture of it because I only buy things on one credit card. So typically your like purchases count. I'm not, don't
How
like
would
take my
you
advice,
how would you
but
prove like what it was and that it was a legitimate business purchase if you didn't keep any kind of record?
I don't know. So I'm
The only other
doing,
way I would think is getting a digital receipt. So having
yeah, like a
besides the
lot of the
business
stuff I buy is
separation,
online.
like
So it's,
have a separate email, like a free, like have a Gmail account for the
yeah,
business. So when you're applying to shows, you're setting up accounts for like application or, paying for stuff on, you know, uh, some website that you shop on for your pottery supplies or, Clay King or whatever. Use that email account so all your receipts and everything that's digital can go into that account. So you have some separation there as well. Because who wants to search through your personal account, your personal email, looking for receipts?
yeah. Okay. Also, all I did just now on the internet was I Googled business write-offs according to the IRS. And there's a guide to business expense. It's like the first thing under the credits and deductions for businesses. And they have all the things I think you need. Um,
Is that a
it looks,
specific government website right there?
yeah, it's the irs.gov. It's IRS, the
Can you send
IRS.
that to me and I'll put that in the episode notes?
Yeah, and I'm kind of like looking at other things too. It looks like they have ebooks that you can read. So that's kind of cool. Um, like you can read the travel, gift, and car expenses, dependents, standard deductions, medical and dental, um, excise tax. So it looks like it's got pretty much all the things. I mean, it's obviously way too much stuff, but um,
Yeah, most of this is not going to apply to us. Most of it's going to be, you know, how do I track my mileage and what's considered business mileage versus not? What supplies can I expense? Like basically
yeah,
I say if it stays in my studio and it's used only in the studio, business
yeah,
expense.
yeah, exactly. Um, I just put it in our note, by the way, our
Sweet.
wheel talk note under the question.
I got
So, yeah, and so as far as expenses go, whatever you're buying for your business to use, if you are on a trip for business, the meals that come from that, there's two different types of way that you can do your mileage. That's either doing it by the miles or by um, how much money you like spend on repairs.
like repairs, gas,
Yeah,
maintenance, all that, and you've got to probably get a percentage of what you use for personal versus business,
right.
and you've got to percentage that out. The easiest
Yeah,
is the standard mileage deduction. Keep track of your miles for business, and then you get depends on the year, but I think it's like 63 cents or something like that per mile
yeah.
that you can
But
expense, and
you can't flip-flop. You gotta
you got to stick
choose
with
one and
one.
stick with it. So that's like flip-flopping is a super huge flag for the IRS. Um, yeah, I mean like You can get pretty loosey-goosey on expenses. It depends on if you want to be that person or not. Ryan and I are not those people.
Yeah,
Uh, here's the just the basics that I go by is I would rather make more money and spend less on stupid stuff that I really didn't need and then pay money in taxes than the opposite way. So I don't need to buy stupid tools that I don't need. And, you know, like spend, I don't need to spend $15,000 at the end of the year because I was
trying to
gonna
offset the profit.
offset the price. Like that's not something that I want to do anymore. I used to be like that, but I'm not like that anymore. So, not that I
Then
make
you
any
just
money,
end
but
up with a bunch of shit.
yeah, you just end up with a bunch of stuff that you either don't use or you spent way too much money on and can't get back. Also, things depreciate, like equipment depreciates. That is something to look into on the internet. That's not for us to answer.
Yeah.
But
If you're buying new equipment like a wheel or a kiln, you should definitely talk to your CPA person about something like that.
yeah, because you can't just be like, "Oh my God, I spent $3,500 on a wheel. I can write all of that off this year." You can't do that. You have to take like a certain part of it, a percentage of it, and you write it off every year after that. So I don't know how it works, but that's how you do it. Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, if if we haven't said it yet, but like I would I would encourage you to pay somebody to do your taxes too. Like
Oh,
that's a
100%.
business expense. If you're having somebody prep your taxes, like pay them to do it. Maybe don't do Joe Schmo that's like a family friend that like pay an actual CPA that um not somebody that just like freelances to do taxes for people because they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like somebody
100%
that
pay a
actually does,
professional.
especially people that do small business taxes already. If they, if they do it for sole proprietors and folks that are in the art industry and like maybe they are similar to what you are, somebody that's familiar with that stuff and Schedule C's and you know
Yeah.
and
I
if you're keeping
do
track of that
not,
stuff, you're gonna make it
yeah.
easier job for them too, so they're gonna appreciate you.
I do not pay for somebody to do my taxes now, but I also make very little money and um my mom is potentially the best CPA ever. So even though she didn't get a degree in it, um, and but that doesn't mean that I still don't mess up. Like last year, I paid the TurboTax fee for the state of Kentucky. Do I live in Kentucky? No.
Did you ever
Um,
live in Kentucky?
no. Uh, my mom, I was like, "It's your fault," and she's like, "It's not my fault." I was like, "Yes, it is."
Yeah, that's why I pay somebody that I trust to be like, hey, if something goes wrong, like we both have skin in this.
Exactly. So yeah, pay for somebody to do your taxes. And
And then if
keep good records. That's the best way that this can be easy.
yeah, there's other like I'll get a random letter from my county that I live in, and it might be like an occupation. Like I think normally I because I'm already declared in the county, my businesses, I'll get a form in the mail that's like your occupational tax for my county, and then I'll just be like we did this last. Here's the form that they want. Here's how they want it done. And I just hand it off, and they're like, okay, here's everything. Here's how it needs to get filled out, where you live, okay, what county you in, all that stuff. And they take care of it, and they're like, okay, here's how much you owe, and they just take care of it. I'm like, okay, that's weight off my shoulders. Like I see what they did, and it's like pretty straightforward. Like, okay, making sure I log the right income numbers and that I do the math right. But I'm like, I'm willing for them to do it. I don't know how much we pay. I think we pay like, mm, ooh, I feel like I'm gonna quote it wrong. Let me look this
I
up real
paid, I
quick.
paid like
But
300 bucks, 300,
yeah,
four
I
hundred
think
bucks.
yeah, I was gonna say I think that's about what it was.
Yeah. Also, use apps to your advantage if you're not a spreadsheet person. So like I use Hurdler, HURDLR. are. And I use that for my mileage and all of my income or my expenses. Not as much my income, but I add up all my income separately. But those things can really save you. And if you know how to use QuickBooks, which if you're listening to this, you don't. So um because if you know how to use QuickBooks, you probably turned it off like 10 minutes ago. Um but
I would guess it's a pretty small percentage of folks that know how to use
yeah.
QuickBooks like really well, right?
But like something like that, like you can, you can keep track of something and just set a timer every month and do it once a month if or do it once a week. Make it a ritual. Have a drink and do your taxes. Like have a drink and do your numbers, for the week
Yeah.
or whatever. But mileage, let's talk about mileage.
No, I just looked at my fees that I paid last year. I paid $340 for my 2022 tax return.
Okay,
So I didn't see what it was from last year, but yeah,
good.
300 and some change.
Sweet. And they're filling up fast, so do it now. I don't know by the time this gets out, you're almost too late. But
No, it'll be out in January still.
that's true.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how like new clients are. Do people
Yeah.
accept new clients very easily?
I don't know. I don't know. That's not something I know.
Yeah. I would say if you're unsure as well, like if you have peers that are in the same space as you and they're local to you, ask those folks.
Yeah.
Or if you're part of like a guild or something that are in your city, like ask them, say, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody to do my taxes. Like, who do you recommend?"
Yeah.
If
Or
you live
just
on
go
the
into
border of
the
a state, like,
yeah.
maybe, like for me, I definitely want to pick somebody in Kentucky because they know the Kentucky tax law and stuff better than Ohio. I wouldn't probably want to go to Ohio to get somebody to do my taxes for Kentucky. But
Yeah, go or like go into like a local retail store that you know is owned locally and be like, "Hey, weird question. Do you have an accountant?" Like that's not an inappropriate question to ask, you know?
yeah. And would you
And then see
recommend
if
them?
yeah, and see if you can get a wholesale account out of them
Have
at
have
the
you ever
same
done like
time.
an H&R Block or anything like that?
I haven't because I've always had pretty good connections.
Okay. I used to do
Yeah.
TurboTax back in the day when I just started and it was like 1040 easy, but since doing the small business, I have not done
I do TurboTax
TurboTax.
now, and TurboTax is like easy for me, and I did it for the first couple of years when I was like really small. But then once I got the store, I was like, we're too complicated now. This is
Yeah.
like we've got uh, business like employees, all the things are happening.
Yeah, you
So,
definitely don't want to mess up there.
yeah. So, okay,
You
mileage.
you asked about mileage. Yeah. So I'm still manually tracking. If I'm putting a start address, end address, I think about once a month I will go into Google Maps and search those destinations and run a quick search of how far the distance is to and from
Mm-hmm.
and document that number. When I go to the same place often, I will just put a little legend out to the side that says, this is all in Excel, and I'll put a legend out to the side that says Queen City Clay is 32 miles. And every time I, go to Queen City, I don't have to like do that Google search, Google Maps again
Yeah.
to track that. And that's an easy way. And then if it's something more flexible, like I'm going to an art show out of town and it's for a whole weekend, I just have a note on my phone and I'll just write down before I leave what the mileage was on my odometer and then write down what the mileage was when I get home and do the math and that's it. So, you know, date, starting point, ending point, mileage, number, and then the reason or like what it was. Was it a show? Was it going to get clay supplies? Was it going to pick up some printing materials, office supplies? Was it going to and from the post office? Definitely count those if you're driving to and from the post office. I walk these days, so I'm not, I don't track that. But um, yeah, basically anything you're going to and from your business for business, use a little bit of common sense when you're going out of town and you happen to make a stop off. to drop, you're going home and you're dropping an order to somebody that's in your hometown, and you make a trip 10 minutes to their house and back after you've already traveled 2 hours to your hometown. Like, don't, you know, it's kind of gray area. Like, sure, you had to go to your hometown, but like, is that all reasonable business travel miles? Like, it's a little gray area, right?
Yeah. Okay, I Googled mileage trackers and I found a an account oh, shit. I found an accounting company. It's called Bench. Um that was just like on the Google search that has best mileage trackers and I put it in our little list. I already put it in there.
Yeah,
Um
I'll put it in our episode notes down below.
yeah. So the best one according to them are Mile IQ. I've used that. Pretty good. Everlance, Sherpa Share, Trip Log, Hurdler, that's the one I use right now, Driver Notes, and Zoho Expense. So, and it has all the information under like why they're good and what's bad about them and blah blah blah. So,
Yeah, I got their
um
costs. How much are they charging? I recommend keeping it manual until you spend money on something. But if you're a personality where you're like, I'm not going to keep track of that, and I'm going to lose money because I'm missing out,
right,
then maybe paying for something is going to be a good kick in the pants. To
Exhibit A.
it pays for
Uh
itself.
yeah. And it's a constant reminder that you actually have to go back and do it, even if it's times a year.
Yeah.
But like also if you don't live where you work, that's another reason to
Mm.
potentially get a tracker because that's a lot. Like you might be
Yeah, if
moving
you
a
don't
lot. And
work from
I
home, if you go to and from a studio, like every
yeah.
time you go to the studio, expense that.
Yeah, but I think it's only one way. So I think it's either you don't have to look it up, but like there's again a lot of different rules involved, but I think you can only like track one way or not. I don't know. But like me, I travel literally all over this country uh
Hmm.
for business. So,
Yeah.
but
There's
I
also
don't
some
yeah,
there's also some gray areas about meals too. I think you mentioned something about meals. Th-
50%, right?
if you are physically in proximity to your home, I think there's something about, like, if I do a show and I go to somewhere local to me on my way home, like, it's a gray area. Like, I don't actually expense that because it's a meal that I would have had to eat anyways. It's not
Yeah.
technically a business meal. But if I'm out of town for a show and, 2 hours away from my home, I will expense all those meals for business because I wouldn't be in that city if it weren't for the show. So, um, yeah, look up you said 50%. I don't know that exact rule, but
There's like some that it can be 100%. Like if you're on a trip, it's 100%. But if you're like in close proximity, I think it's 50%. And it's up to a certain amount too. So, yeah,
yeah, there's
they
probably
keep
like
pretty
per
close tabs on food and
yeah,
travel.
try to don't try to outsmart the government. I don't know that
Oh,
that's a entity that you want to be fighting with, and
yeah.
whenever they give you a bill, you know, it's one of the
Oh,
first things I perk up to make sure I take care of first.
we're gonna talk about, I want to say one thing, but then I want to remind you that we have to talk about quarterly payments. Okay, what was I gonna say? God damn it. Oh, I was gonna say that like I used to be so vigilant about tracking all of my expenses, and now I'm like, like, mm, I made money, I spent money, whatever. Like, like because I think it's because I make so little. If I would have make more, I'd probably be more diligent about it. But because I don't, I need like the government to look like I need them to be like, how? okay, she's living a little, you know, like how
What?
to
That doesn't sound
like
like a good thing to endorse. You're not endorsing it. It doesn't sound like.
no, but I mean no, but I guess what I'm saying is that when I was younger, I was super super strict about expenses and I've laxed a little like your food situation. Like I would never expense a meal near my house ever. I barely expense the meals like that I go
Yeah.
out of town with because it's like I'm gonna eat that food anyway. And um and if I do expense everything because of the life that I live, it's actually more of a red flag than the
Oh,
opposite
yeah. Yeah, they'd be like,
because
"Well, where do you physically live? Are you
exactly like and so I have to show them that
mileage?"
I'm like making money and I'm, blah blah blah. And so yeah, like be considerate of the fact that you can't be negative on your taxes like 5 years in a row. That's not sustainable. So don't be that person. Like
Yeah. I don't know enough about what does set off red flags, but there's probably a period of some progression that you have to be showing.
yeah.
Like
And I mean, like, who knows?
like
I've
you
never been
we
audited,
get
but I
it.
know people that have.
Like there's some startup expenses, like getting equipment and getting materials and
Yeah,
you haven't made any money because you don't have anything made yet. So you need to spend money to get things made so that you can sell the things that are being made. Like that makes sense. But if you're always buying new equipment all the time and you're always spending all the money that you've made, it's gonna look a little suspicious.
yeah, exactly. I guess that's what I was saying. So,
Because then they're
yeah,
like, what do why are your expenses, you're making more, but why are you spending the exact amount, like more and
yeah.
more the more you make? It's exactly the same. Or you're spending more than you're making. Like, how is that?
How are you living?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
for sure. Uh, okay. Quarterly taxes. Something I had no idea about until
Are you talking
probably
about
four
income
years ago.
taxes or sales tax?
Income.
Income.
Something I didn't realize until recently, especially if you're doing something on TurboTax or something like that. You need to set up an account with the IRS and make quarterly payments predicting how much money you're going to make in the year. You know about it more than I do, but
Yeah, I learned about this through my CPA because they prep my taxes and they say you owe this amount of money. And when I end up owing like $4,000 at the end of the year, the IRS is like, we don't like that. We don't trust you to pay us $4,000 in a lump sum. So we're going to make you pay us quarterly payments so that for your benefit and for our benefit, we're collecting that money a little bit at a time. And they kind of expect that you're going to basically do the same thing that you did the previous year. So if you owed $4,000, they're going to space that across each quarter and they're going to say you owe us $1,000 Q1, $1,000 Q2, 1,000 Q3, and 1,000 Q4. And if you don't pay it at those quarterly payments, they're going to charge a penalty and they're going to basically charge interest. It depends on
yeah,
where you are at. You have to make it's some number of you have to make a certain amount of profit before they start expecting you to pay quarterly payments. But since I think since like 2018 or so, I've been expected to make quarterly payments because I pretty much always
yeah,
make a big profit every year.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I didn't have to pay a fine, but I think that there's like a loophole if you pay by a certain amount, you're like fine, but or by a certain date or something, you're okay. But I got hit with like a $4,000 payment in 2022, year
Hmm.
2022. It was rough, real
Well,
rough.
and it's one of those things where they look at it at a yearly basis and then they divide it by four. They don't say, "Did you actually make money in Q1?"
Right.
They just say, "You owe $4,000 for the year, so you need to pay us $1,000 after Q1's over." Even though it's a slow period of time, like of the year, you still are expected to pay that money. So I've done it before where I'm like, well, I didn't really make money during that time, so I'm just not going to pay 1,000. But once we get to the next quarter, I'm just going to pay 2,000. And they're like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. Like you owe us. You were supposed to pay us at this point, so you actually need to pay 2,000 and some interest, I think is what I ended up having to do. So
Yeah.
they were like, you
This
didn't
is
pay us. Like I think the IRS emailed me or they sent me a letter or something to say we expected you to pay on this date. You missed that deadline. And I was like, oh
yeah.
shit, like I better go in and pay that. So I think I paid the 1,000 plus the penalty.
This is a great time to mention the tools that you can use to help with this problem. One of them is Square has a feature in its balance section, and you can create account like little tiny accounts in Square that will literally take the money out of Square before it even deposits into your bank account, and you can take certain percentages. So, like that account actually is how I lived this year because every time I got in a jam, I was like, I think I still have money in there. But um so like I have a little a savings part that's 20%. I have another one that's 5%, and I have another one that's 3% every time I have a balance in Square. Another thing is there's a bank called Relay, Relay. I just signed up for it too, just to kind of see what it is. And they are partnered with the book Profit First. And Profit First is a book that kind of explains how to like put your money into five separate accounts so that you are saving the appropriate amount for the appropriate amount of things. So, yeah. So that one, I haven't like really delved into how that works with how separating the accounts and stuff works for that, but I do know that they partner with the book, so they've got to have something. So I just wanted to, if you didn't want, if you're not using Square, Relay's a good option. Um, took me 10 minutes to create account there too. So also they had like a competition and I could win $25,000.
Mm.
Um, Anyway, so those are good options for that because not everybody is good at saving the amount that you need to save because it's really, really nice when you're like, oh shit, I have to do a quarterly payment, and you're like, wait, I had this account that was taking out a certain percentage every time. I don't
Yeah.
have to think about that money. And you just take it out and you don't even worry about it. It's
And
so nice.
and that percentage is going to account for the slow months and the high months. Like if
Yeah,
you have a really gangbusters couple months around the holidays and you actually made more profit than you did last year, like if you owed 4,000 last year, you might owe 5,000 this year because you had a better
right.
year. So it's going to set aside that percentage so that you can I've done that proactively because I don't want to wait for tax time to figure out like, okay, I can look at what I did last year and compare the numbers and say, okay, I actually made more in the first half of the year than I did at this time last year. So like I actually paid a little bit more. Like instead of 1,000, I might have paid 1,500 on that Q2 estimated payment. So I overpaid a little bit because I knew that it was gonna want it at the end of the year. I
Yeah.
mean, forecasting that I'm still gonna keep up with my pace of what I did Q3 and Q4 of the previous year as well. But you know, I overpaid so that I could save myself. It was a little tougher to let go of that money once you got a big check that you got to release all at once.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, it's very easy to do the account on the IRS, by the way. It's like my ID, whatever. I thought it'd be really difficult and really like
yeah,
confusing.
it's
It's
not
like a
difficult.
piece of cake. So if that's a worry for you. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I suspect folks out there that have, I mean, uh, having an account with your state. I mean, you're going to need that for sales tax anyways.
unless
So
you live in
like,
a state without, oh yeah, sales. Oh, we should talk about sales tax.
yeah, keep up with your sales tax. I basically say if I'm selling an event in a state, be aware of what the sales tax percentage is. Some shows will give you a form that says, here's what the sales tax percentage is, here's what you're gonna need to fill out and submit after the show's over. Kentucky does that, and you have like a month and a half to submit it and pay it, or submit it and say, here's my tax ID number. I will be paying it with my quarterly, or it depends on what state you're in. Like Kentucky, I pay quarterly my sales tax as well as my estimated payment. Um, but also, you know, you got to keep up with that too.
I just realized that I forgot to, like, there was like 4 podcasts ago, and I was like, I gotta do that tomorrow, and I never did. I never got my
Mm.
business license into, I gotta do that tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. So having a business license for your sole proprietorship to like to pay sales tax, like it's on you to make sure you set that up. Because
And
technically,
some
if you're selling
people,
to the public, you're supposed to have some business license.
yeah. And some
And
people don't have a business license in like the state of Indiana. They don't have a business license. They just have like a tax ID. But it all goes through the Department of Revenue essentially. So
hmm
just look up your state Department of Revenue, and they're very friendly when you're not in trouble with them. So
yeah, you
just
could just, and if you're
call them
selling in
up.
different states, usually the thing that you want to look up is transient vendor license. And that's, if I go over to the state of Ohio, I have a transient vendor license ID as saying I don't physically have a brick and mortar or a location that is in this state. I kind of move around and I set up shop temporarily at these shows. And that tax ID is what I use to pay my sales tax for operating business temporarily in that state.
Yeah. And
So when it comes
online,
time to
oh, go on.
pay, I have to separate out I did business in this county, this county, this county, and I have to do the calculations of how much money did I make in that county and, do the proper payment on the deadlines that they have. Like the state of Ohio is different. I pay sales tax twice a year in Ohio. Kentucky, I pay quarterly, 4 times a year, and they have different deadlines and all that stuff. And then you just have to pick and choose. Like Kentucky, I'm going to charge sales tax for, I live in Kentucky for people that didn't know that. I charge sales tax for the shows that I do in the state of Kentucky. It's easy in Kentucky because the sales tax is the same everywhere in the state. But I also, if I'm doing transactions at like an in-person one-on-one thing, if it's a commission and somebody's local and I'm doing an order and they're picking up in my house, like, and they live in Kentucky or they live in Cincinnati, like I still charge Kentucky sales tax because I'm technically doing business from my home. So that's kind of like a gray area thing. Like, do you charge sales tax? Do you not? Like, if I'm doing transactions on retail product from my home, quote unquote, because that's where my business is based, I usually will charge Kentucky sales tax for that transaction, especially if they're in my state. And then you need to like keep track of those when you need to pay your sales tax. So it's not just like the shows you do in that state. It's also, for me, I do it whenever I'm doing one-on-one interactions and transactions with people local to me. But if I sell to somebody in like Wisconsin, I don't necessarily charge Kentucky sales tax because they're not like within a certain proximity. Was it Nexus or
Yeah.
something like that?
Online sales are very different too. So I would just suggest doing a Google search for your state. Also, if you live in a state that doesn't have any income tax, there's a good chance that your sales taxes are going to be straight from hell. So just be prepared. Uh, if you live in Washington and you've been doing it for a while, you already know, but it's garbage. It's garbage. You have to like have every single county that you sell in. So, yeah, that's why I'm happy that I do most of my sales online. Uh, because in Tennessee, it's one of those type of states. I'm pretty sure it's just a hot mess. I'm pretty sure it's a county sort of state. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how
There
taxes go this year.
there was one other income tax thing that I've thought about since we talked about it. I do pay quarterly payments to the federal government and the state government. So you pay income tax. Well, depending on your state. Like if you're in Tennessee, you
Yeah.
don't pay income tax, but like Becca being in Tennessee, if she made enough profit, she would be expected to pay federal income tax. But if your state doesn't have it, you don't pay a state income tax. But I have to submit, I think I pay, a certain percentage. I think I pay like $3,000 to the federal government every quarter for income tax, and then to the state I pay like 600 bucks. So it's
Yeah, it's
like
not as much, but
so it's dependent on your state and what when you file your state taxes and your federal taxes, my CPA tells me, okay, here's how much the state is expecting you to pay quarterly, and here's how much the federal government, the IRS, is expecting you to pay quarterly. And this is all in the US, obviously. We've been talking about the US the whole time, but I suspect it's similar in other areas where you pay like a local thing and then a more federal thing. But
I don't even know.
but yeah, be sure that you're keeping up with that. Like, and they have different timelines too. Like, I think Kentucky has a different date of when things are due. Some of them are like the 15th of the month after the quarter ends, and some of them are like the 20th of the month after the quarter ends. So, like, be sure you're aware of what those deadlines are so you don't miss them for paying your state income tax as well as your federal income tax if they apply to you. So,
Oh, I have
um,
until January 20th.
okay,
Okay.
that's good. Yeah, I think that's the deadline for me to pay. I know that's the Ohio sales tax for Q2. I think that might be Kentucky sales tax for Q4 as well. And I think the 15th of January is when you have to make your final federal government payment, maybe for income tax. So this will be released by the time that passes. Um, so I wrote some other things down of how I learned about some of this stuff. I don't know about you and like if you went to any classes or did any kind of business lectures or anything like that where they talked about some of this stuff. But there was one in when I lived in Louisville, there was a group called SCORE. I can't remember. It was like it was part of the Kentucky Department of Revenue, I believe. And it was basically a small business financing kind of like under like lecture. And it went through basically everything you need to know about um, starting a business and understanding that you're doing things properly when it comes to like, do I do an LLC? Do I do a sole proprietorship? Like, how do I find out about, where to find a CPA? Or, um, can I find a mentor? Are there some resources that I can look up for, um, you know, entrepreneurs that are near me? Or are there grants or whatever? Like, some of those resources can be found through like your city of commerce or chamber of commerce for your local area and something you could reach out to them. There should hopefully be resources. Oh, it looks like Score is a global, like a not specific to Kentucky, so there's different ones around the country.
I just got hurled into small businesses. That's all I got. I got like they're like, here you go, figure it out. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it looks like that. It looks like this is powered by the Small Business Administration. Its Score is in Washington D.C. in partnership with the Small Business Administration. But SCORE is something you can look up and find out if 41076. Let's see. See if there's some stuff. Yeah, Greater Cincinnati. And then I can find, some resources local to me. Because what I did was I think I went to it's like a Saturday afternoon workshop. I just
Mm-hmm.
found my paperwork from when I went to that back. I think I went to it in like 2016. So I think I went to it the second year of my business or the first year of my business. And it's a Saturday afternoon. You sign up, you get started at like 9 a.m. and you're there till 4 p.m. or whatever. And they're talking all about, the business structures. There was a talk about social media and like technology, where they're talking about, do you need a website? How do you go about looking into some of that stuff? So it was very wide range of topics that they went over. And they had volunteers that ran their own businesses and maybe they were a CPA and they were talking about the business structures and they just volunteered their time. Maybe they got paid, but they were like local professionals. They weren't just somebody talking about like regurgitating stuff. They actually had expertise in that area to be talking about it. I think there was a lawyer that came and talked about some different things, maybe like liability and insurance and some of that kind of stuff. And it was beneficial to go to, especially early on in my business.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to go into something when you don't know anything about it. You know, like you're like, I want to do this, I want to make my own money. And then you get into it and you're like, wait a second, there's a lot of things that I didn't know, and there's just a lot of things to know.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things to know. It's a lot. And like, don't have, I would say, like, don't let your ego get in the way of asking questions, especially with this type of stuff. You want to be on the right end. There's no such thing as ignorance when it comes to the law. So, or the
Yeah.
IRS.
And like there's so many free resources out there. I think finding something that's a little
Yeah.
more structured so you can get at least a 101 view and then maybe a 201 view of some of these things so you know where to ask those next questions
Yeah.
and you know what like you're getting a glimpse into a number of these different areas that okay, maybe this doesn't apply to me now, but I remember like hearing something about that when I was in this lecture and they were talking about LLCs. Like, okay, like I don't need that now, but like, oh, maybe I should look into that. And you can, I was just looking on the score site. Like, there's a bunch of live events that are online.
Yeah.
The thing that I went to was free. I just signed up for it, and it was, it's funded by the state or the government, and I mean, it's basically what you'd want to know as a new small business owner or an
Yeah.
existing small business owner.
I think about all those people that like happen to get like famous super quick or happen to like earn a bunch of money super quick and get like thrown into something, and then before they know it, it's like a jumble of all these finances and all these expenses, and they didn't know anything about it. And like if they are prepared, then it's not that scary, but if you're not, you're just like, okay. Like,
Hmm.
I being even a little bit prepared, knowing just a tiny bit is going to be better than anything that, like, just thrown into the wolves essentially.
Yeah, and for a lot of us, we're to a certain part of our business where we kind of found a rhythm that works for us,
Yeah.
and it's hard to put. I'm glad that I did see that paperwork when I was cleaning out my studio. I saw the folder that I got from doing that workshop and that lecture on that Saturday randomly in 2015 or 2016, and I probably haven't looked back at it since then, but I do remember like that was useful, and it's hard to
Hmm.
remember back to like, okay, like what tools did like how did I learn this stuff? Because you could say, oh, well, like there's podcasts out there, but like what podcasts? What specific episodes? Like there's so
Yeah.
much content to dig through. You almost kind of need a like, okay, like let's step back. Okay, is there a course that I can do? Free is awesome because then you don't have to worry about the like, oh, I gotta spend a bunch of money for this, I gotta spend hundreds of dollars on this thing to learn, and it's a
Yeah.
funnel to get me to buy something else.
Well, and it's like even those like expenses, like going onto the IRS website, they have ebooks on the information that you need to hear. Like that's insane. Like they're literally handing you the information. I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, it might be hard to find like exactly what you're looking for, but they're handing it to you. All it takes is a good Google search, you know?
Yeah, and it's not a fun Sunday read, probably,
Oh,
but taking in bits and pieces
yeah.
and
And like,
realize that like it's gonna take. I mean, we're still learning all this stuff. Like it's a lifetime of growing
yeah,
and learning all these different areas.
yep. And messing up and getting it right. And yeah, I learned how to batch receipts from Sherwin-Williams. Like, I was an assistant manager and I was like, oh, this is how you batch receipts.
What do you mean by batch receipts?
Like take all the receipts that you spend in a month and put them all in like so the way I batch receipts is I just take everything that I spent in January and I put it in a little manila envelope and write January and that's where all the receipts go and there's like, you know, that's so that when the auditor comes and they
Mm,
say I need to find this receipt from January 6th, 1995 or whatever. It'd probably
yeah.
be like 2000. You actually can throw them away after 7 years, but you can just hand them the envelope and be like, here you go.
Okay, so you weren't taking the receipts and actually putting them into some system to keep track.
No.
You were just literally organizing them
Yeah. And I mean,
and
like,
labeling them
honestly,
appropriately.
that was a great system for me. Like when I had
Yeah.
a location because it had nothing to do with technology. All I was doing was just,
Yeah.
I was literally stuffing receipts into this like bean container after I would, get done or like come to the studio or whatever. And then at the end of the
You're like,
month,
all right, February 1st. All right,
let's
empty the bean
go.
container.
Empty the bean container. I'd go through all my receipts. I'd print out my statements from my bank accounts and I'd print out my profit and loss. And then I'd put them all in a folder. And they all go in that folder. All my expenses go in that folder. All my income goes in that folder. And I still have the boxes out in my parents' garage. Like,
Nice.
it's not that hard, but you have to figure out a system that works well for you. For me, taking a picture of it and putting it in my phone, never going to work. Never going to work.
Yeah.
It's just never going to work. I don't know why it won't, but it won't. But
Even if it's digital, so much stuff's digital these days. Finding the folder, losing access to the folder. Oh, what Google account was I logged into when I put it in that Google folder?
yeah,
Like
it's
I could
like
see it being, yeah.
it's wild. So, like for me, I know that it's got to be physical. Like even now, I don't really keep my receipts, but any of the big receipts, they're like stuffed into this like tiny thing in the van. Like,
Yeah.
it's like that's why I always had a wallet that was like a big wallet, so I could put receipts in one side and cash in the other.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
The one other thing that I wanted to mention that's also like this is not going to apply to everybody, but it's something that taught me to be more accountable was um I'm part of the Clay Guild locally, the Clay Alliance, and I've been the treasurer for the past 3 years. And like the only reason I was willing to actually go for that position was because I'd already had my business like accounting in somewhat order and like felt competent in doing this. It is a big risky job because you're like managing finances for this group that is not just you. Like if shit goes wrong, like it's on you. Like, do you
Yeah.
really want to manage that? So, and what we do is we have a monthly treasurer's report. I do it every single month. It's building a habit. Okay, I'm going to this meeting. I have to get this treasurer's report done in time for the meeting. So I'm like 1 month delayed, and I go in and I print off the bank statement. Like I said, bank accounts are separate. It's in its own bucket. There's a
Yep.
checking account, a savings account, and there's some CDs in there. That's actually how I learned what CDs were, was because we had CDs in this business account for the organization, and I didn't know what CDs were. I'm like I gotta look into this. Like what is this? And I would do the bank statement every month, and I would see that it's like accruing a few pennies at a time, and I'm like I'm seeing an interest rate, a percentage, and I'm like, what is this? And
Yeah.
it's just growing. Like what's going on here? And so there's that, as well as just I had to manually log every single income line item and every single expense line item every single month. And you have to balance it out. Like it gives you all the numbers of, what did this pot start with? What did the checking account start with in the month? What did it end with? And then you got to do all the math to make sure it balances out. And then every single month you're putting that into the yearly statement that has all the different categorization of line items of,
Yep.
you know, what what expense categories are there, what income categories are there, and is all the math adding up like with every cent. So like if you need to, treat your own business like that and keep
Balance
track
your
of
books.
balance your books every single month and just build a habit of it, like
Just like
for
balancing your checkbook.
for that I had to go to a meeting with that stuff information not that everybody asked about it every month, but like I had to do it because like that's what I'm expected to do every single month. So if you need to build your own accounting um and keep yourself accountable to like do that, even though it's, maybe you only have like 4 transactions in a month, like
Yeah.
still build a habit of doing it and not letting it
Yeah,
pile
I'm
up.
like so out of the habit of doing that kind of stuff and I really need to get back to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's what's got me to be even more um diligent about making sure to not let things just slide for a while and be like,
yeah.
I'll get back to it because it'll pile up. And like paying the sales tax, like I've forgotten to pay the sales tax at the deadline for the organization before or file certain things and I'm like, oh shit, like I'm behind. Like I gotta pay a penalty and they're saying like, okay, if you don't do this within the next 2 years and you keep doing it, like we're gonna do something and we're gonna like penalize you. And I'm like, oh shit, like I can't
Yeah.
forget to do that stuff.
Yeah.
So setting calendar reminders for me is what I need to do to make sure I um pay my sales tax, pay my estimated payments for each of the states, like all that stuff for making sure I'm keeping up with it.
Yeah. This will
Did
be
you
a
ever
good what?
did you ever have a bookkeeper at all?
Yeah, I did.
At what point did you have that or feel that it was like necessary? Because I suspect you were doing it all yourself before that. So,
At the time that I completely fucked up all my books and had to go through like 2 years of QuickBooks and had to change everything, that's the time. That was the time. And she
mm,
gave me like a really good deal because I was like your smallest client and she's like, "Yeah, I got you." Um I'm just not accountable to do things monthly. It's just not my thing. I unfortunately have an extremely good memory for my life.
mhm.
Like
Is
if
she
you
basically doing what I'm doing for the treasures for the
yeah,
clay lines?
yeah,
Okay.
she would bounce. What is it called? I don't remember. It's something technical, but she would like balance the books essentially at the end of the quarter or end of the month. And oh, poor Lloyd got a big bump. Um, and yeah, I have something that you have to share your big news that you reached a goal by the end of the
Oh.
year.
Oh, yeah, my big goal. So I think we 2024 episode, which is going to come out January 4th, I think.
Hmm.
I was teetering on whether I was going to hit $100,000 or not in revenue, and I hit $100,000 in revenue.
Yay!
So that was, I actually looked back at my goals for 2024 and my number that I put up there, I was at 95 the year before. I put 105,000 revenue for 2024, but as the goal, but I think hitting that actual six-figure mark was the main thing that I was hoping to hit once we got
Proud of
later in the
you.
year. So I'm glad that I finally reached it.
Well, and if you added in Wheel Talk, how much they paid Wheel Talk, you almost did hit that.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah,
And yeah.
yeah, 105. Yeah, probably. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Definitely did.
especially Pot Swap. Yeah.
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 So, yeah, big number. You know, it was funny. So I've always been pretty um upfront with my employer about um the small business. And I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, my manager at the time, and we talked about the small business growth and stuff like that. And he was like, it would be so interesting if you could like tell people like here's how you make a six-figure business like selling pottery. And it's like, you know, and I finally like hit that mark. It's like 4 years past when we talked about it, and he's since left the company. He's not my manager anymore or anything like that. But it was always like that felt like a mark
Mm-hmm.
that like I suspect most people wouldn't think it's doable to sell pottery and make six figures.
Yeah. And well, like, and not only sell pottery, but like sell pottery, like with shows and stuff, like not being uber famous online, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
And not like relying on other things to say like I'm a potter. but I also like rely heavily on other income streams. That's like
Yeah.
selling courses or whatever. Like, yes, there is some teaching in there, doing workshops and doing, soda firing workshops and teaching online with virtual things, but it's not doing the bookkeeping workshops, but that's not the
Yeah.
you know. It is making and selling pottery. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yay,
Big
exciting.
big exciting number. So, figuring out I, what that revenue number is going to look like for 2025, but yeah, I don't did I even say what I thought I estimated for 2025? I can't remember if I set a goal for that, but
I think you said like 105 or
105 or
110.
110. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see where we end up.
Fantastic. Um, God, I feel like there was something that I was gonna say and I can't remember. I had all my notes, last Excel sheets, wraps, mileage, seeds, bank account. No, I feel like we've hit a lot of the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Excel sheets. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't really talk about Excel sheets, but Ryan does a lot of that. I don't, I do a little bit, but I do have a
Yeah.
budget. I do have a very, very simple profit and loss budget. If you want to message me, I can send you that, and you can kind of like twerk it, tweak it, twerk it, tweak it to
Tweak
the
it.
way that you want it. It's very simple. All I sell on is Fair, Square, and Etsy. So those are the three categories, and it's monthly. And
Yeah.
then the main like expenses that are continuous from those. So
Yeah.
like marketing from Etsy and marketing from Square and stuff like that. So I'm more than happy to send you that. Just email us. Please don't message me. It's a lot easier to just send it through an email. And yeah, and I can send that off and I just make little tabs every year. I just copy it and then make a new tab. So,
Yeah, I've ebbed and flowed with the Excel spreadsheets. I've talked about this before with the bookkeeping workshops, but getting some way of tracking it. I mean, for the podcast, I keep an income and expense sheet that's just literally a iPhone note. And that's how I've been keeping track of our income and expenses for the podcast because there's not a lot moving around
yeah.
for us, and it's a way for Becca and I to both see it. We don't have to go find a file somewhere
Even
in
though
Google
I
Drive.
basically didn't know it existed until today. So,
Yeah, but keeping up with that, I didn't keep up with that super diligently, but I literally just opened up the Chase account and looked at the bank statement, and then I was matching up and putting them in the right group of expenses or income, and it's not going to add everything up for you nicely like a Excel spreadsheet is, but I can probably copy this and paste it into an Excel spreadsheet super easily and run some of those numbers and put the categories on it and make sure I'm tracking it appropriately. But
yeah.
I started with Super Excel, basic, manually putting everything in, having tabs for income, tab for expenses, and tab for a balance sheet where it does the math to balance the two of those out and tell you how much profit you made. And it's evolved to now I have Google Forms that I fill out. I have one for income, for expenses, and fees. Fees are like application and like Etsy fees and stuff. And I fill one out every time I get a check from a consignment shop or I do a show or I go to Lowe's and buy something. I go to this Google form. I can go to it as long as I have an internet connection. I can go to any of these forms from an app on my phone. I just pull up the the browser link to that form, fill it out with the basic information that you'd expect: date, where did I buy it from, or what show was it, how much did I spend or how much did I make, and then what was the reason, what did I spend it for, and then if it's an expense, like what category did it fall under, and I submit it and it goes into this spreadsheet. So I don't have to go into a manual clicking around on my phone and go to the spreadsheet. I can just do it from my phone, submit it, it gets in there. So that's what the bookkeeping workshop is for, that I have been teaching for the last 2 or 3 years. And it's just something I do right around the beginning of the year when people are thinking about taxes. They're trying to do their taxes for the previous year or they're looking forward to their taxes for the following year and they want to make sure they're organized. That's what I do. So I'll put a link to that bookkeeping workshop information in here and you can sign up for one. I'll probably do a couple workshops probably in February timeframe. I think is usually a good time when people are thinking about taxes as well as they're thinking ahead for their current year. So
Oh, I remembered something. If you made continue with your thing, but
go
then
yeah, that's pretty much it. So look out for bookkeeping workshops. I actually have an email. I'll put the email list link in the show notes here too, so you can sign up to know when those workshops are scheduled and sign up. I just keep a small email list of people that have showed interest. And then what I do if you've already done a workshop with me, I'll send out an email to those folks and say, "Hey, you've already done this, you've already used this resource. If it's useful for you, here's a getting started guide for 2025 and you can download the files you need for 2025 and it's got some analytics involved there so it's got you can keep track and compare, how did I do January of 2024 versus January 2025 and you can do some of those analytics and look at some of that information that's specific to 2025 only if you want. So I'll send that out to folks that have already paid for workshops in the past. It's very reasonable price. It's not groundbreaking. It's not, hundreds of dollars. It's very reasonable in my opinion. If you feel like you're somebody that would benefit from that, if you don't feel like you want to manually track all that stuff and you can't keep up with doing all that, then, I get it. It's not for you. And other apps might be beneficial like QuickBooks or Wave or whatever. But yeah, so I'll put that link down there if you want to sign up for one.
okay. One last thing because we do have to get off because it's 12:30. At your house. Well, I have
Mhm.
two last things. One, if you've made a significant chunk of money in January and you do want an easy write-off for your federal taxes, you should just throw some of that into an IRA. Just like
Mm.
just like you can put $6,500 as long as you've made that much money,
Profit,
um,
right?
profit into an IRA, and that will give you a fair amount of deductions, like a fair amount. So keep that in mind if you're like, oh no, it's going to cost me like $45,000. You have until April 15th to add your deductions for the previous year. So, or
Mm.
add into your IRA for the previous year. So you have until April to get $6,500 into that account. And I highly, highly recommend it. And then once you get it into it, try to invest it. But that's fine. Whatever. You don't have to.
But you should
Um,
also like if you have a 401k with a full-time job, like I don't think you can put that money in an IRA,
no,
but
but I'm
like,
talking about like self-employed people can
oh
have
yeah,
an IRA, like a Roth
yeah.
IRA, and you can put $6,500 into it if you've made that much money in profit, and you should be putting that money into there.
Oh yeah.
You get a good deduction on your taxes. That's money that's there for your future, blah, blah, blah. So, keep that in mind if you want some more deductions. Second,
I
if
ha
you, oh, go on.
I have a follow-up trick to that. If you know you're gonna make $6,500 in profit and you're not strapped for cash, you can actually invest that day one for 2025. Like if I
Oh,
know I'm
yeah,
gonna make more than 6,500, put that in the IRA or Roth IRA, preferably Roth IRA if you can do that.
they're different. We're not going to go into it.
If you can do Roth IRA, go Roth IRA, put 6,500 or whatever the limit is, and then invest it, and it'll grow throughout the year instead of
Yeah.
waiting until the end of the year, and it's going to be worth more money by the end of the year than if you were to put a little bit of money at a time. But only do that if
Right.
you can afford to do that.
Yeah. And like invest it into like a standard like ETF, like fucking like S&P 500, that kind
S&P
of
500 index fund and
index
international
fund, like
index
that
fund.
sort of
Yeah.
thing. Um yeah. Do it in something not as super risky, but long term. Okay. and then we're going to end on this. If you have learned anything from this episode today, it is to get a bank account for your business. I swear to God, go get a bank account for your business. Okay, that is all.
Sweet. Good thing we started the topic on it and we're in the topic on it.
That's right. That's right. No excuses. It's
Yeah.
mandatory.
This felt like a very fitting time to be doing this discussion.
I
I was
agree.
worried that we wouldn't have enough to say about it and it would feel like
Oh,
we're talking too much out of our ass about some of this stuff, but
I
honestly,
have so much to say.
we've been in business so long with a lot of these things that are just so second nature to just things you have to know, but if you
Yeah.
had to know them, where would you go to find them out? Like, that's a little tough.
This is also like a good time to like pump you up, be like, oh, like just us talking today was like, man, I should really get my taxes done.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of excited to do it now, just to get
Yeah.
out of the way. I mean, I'm not going to submit them until I can get some money to put into my IRA, but hopefully.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Cool.
Sweet.
Okay.
All right. Look for all the resource links we have in the description. They'll be useful,
Yeah.
I think, for this episode for sure.
100%. All
All
right. And
right.
remember, it's always a Google search away.
Yeah. Or if you want to use ChatGPT.
Yeah. This is a great
It's,
scenario for that.
yeah. Just to get a little info and be like, what site should I rely on? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely good for
All right.
researching stuff like that. All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. This podcast is made possible through the contributions of all of our listeners who always ask us great questions, leave us reviews, and contact with us through social media. Thanks to all the fellow makers as well who take time to be interviewed and share about their lives and businesses.
And thank you to Ashley from Boldover Ceramics and Lindy from Lindy Garner Ceramics for their assistance on the Whale Talk Podcast Instagram. You are invaluable. Thank you to everybody.